Hi, I'm Angie from AngieEKnows.com and Surface Design Academy, and welcome to my YouTube channel. In my last video, we created some painted interfacing that can be used for stencils or silkscreens, and in this video, I'm going to cut a small design and make a small silkscreen. So to get started, you will need your painted interfacing, and it needs to have some fusible web on the back. I like to use Wonder Under, but you can use any fusible web that you have on hand. You will also need some sheer drapery fabric. I like to either go to the thrift store and buy draperies, or I go to the fabric store and just buy some sheer fabric. You don't want the weave to be too loosely woven, and you don't want it to be too tightly woven. Just try to find a happy medium. You will also need a craft knife. I have my design and a pencil, and I'll explain that later. You'll need some duct tape or Gorilla Tape to tape the edges of your silkscreen, and you will need a cutting surface and an iron to apply the fusible web and apply the sheer fabric to it. So this is the design I will be using, and when I cut my stencil, I like to cut from the painted interfacing side and not the fusible side. If I want my design to be exactly as I have it here, I have to create a mirror image, and I do that by applying some pencil over it and then tracing it from the back side. If I don't do that, my image will be flipped. Now you can cut from the fusible side. I've tried that, and for me it just works better to cut from the non-fusible side, so I always do this. Now when I cut this, it's not going to be as perfect as what I designed in Inkscape. If I want very straight lines and a perfect cut, I will use one of my electronic cutting machines, either my Silhouette Cameo or my Silver Bullet. If I cut it by hand, I know it's not going to be that perfect, but that's okay with me. I did design this in Inkscape, as I said, and if you want to learn more about creating and designing Inkscape, check out the link in the description to my online course, Design to Cut. So now that I have my design traced on, I can go ahead and cut it out. When using a craft knife, you always want to make sure your fingers aren't in the way. And instead of turning corners, you want to turn your material. Okay, the final section. Okay, so the design is all cut. You can see that, and I'm just going to trim away some of this. And the next step is to use the iron to apply the fusible interfacing to the reverse side. So I'll peel away the paper backing from the Wonder Under, and the interfacing the fusible that you're using may not have a paper backing, but that's okay. And I will put my shear on, go to the iron, and fuse this down. If you want to use this just as a stencil, at this point you can stop, but I like to silkscreen, so I'm going to turn it into a silkscreen. Let me go fuse this down, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back now, and I have my sheer fabric fused onto the back side, and I want to give you a few tips about doing that. First of all, you want to protect your pressing surface and your iron. So you can either use parchment paper or one of the pressing sheets. Never iron directly onto the painted interfacing. I have had some of the paint come off onto the iron when it gets hot. Second thing is, when you apply the sheer fabric, try to make sure that the sheer is stretched a bit so that you get it nice and tight in this area, in the cutout areas. Otherwise, if it's kind of loose, as you screen print, it will buckle and your paint will bleed. So the next step is to go ahead and cover all of these edges with Gorilla Tape or duct tape, or you can even use like packing tape. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so the silk screen is now ready to use. Again, we will be printing from this side, and I want to show you one little thing that I didn't take into consideration. This edge is fairly close, the cut edge is fairly close to the Gorilla Tape, and that may not give me a good print. We'll see. So I should have maybe put the Gorilla Tape back a little bit, but we'll see how that turns out. So let me grab a piece of fabric and I'll do a quick print for you. Okay, I'm going to do a quick print just to test out the screen. So I have the screen, my paint, and a craft stick. Since this is such a small screen, I don't need a squeegee. I'm just going to use my old library card. And this is a piece of fabric that I had rust dyed. So let's just bring out some paint. That should be enough. Usually the first print takes more paint than you think, and remember, we're printing from the side that has the fabric mesh on it. So I'm just going to pull this across a couple times and give it a lift and see what I got. Don't want to leave any excess paint in the open areas. So I'm going to lift this up, and that's not too bad of a print. So this paint is very transparent, so you're going to see what's underneath it. I'll just pull a couple more. So one of the reasons I like using painted interfacing for silk screens is when I first started silk screening, I used a photo emulsion method, and it's a perfect method. It's what professionals use, but it requires chemicals, it requires a way to expose your photo emulsion and all of that. And this method I learned from another textile artist. She used tulle and her instead of sheer mesh, and I will put a link to her channel in the description below, so you can go check that video out if you'd like. Not a good print there, but I like it because it's something that we normally have around the studio, and you don't necessarily have to go out and buy anything special. You don't have to deal with chemicals. It's products we're already used to using, and I think it makes a great silk screen. Okay, it actually prints better than I thought it would, because I didn't think I got the mesh as tight as I should have, and I thought this edge was not going to print that well, but it prints pretty good. So that's how you cut your painted interfacing and turn it into a silk screen. Or if you want a stencil, just don't put the mesh on it and use your stencil brush. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so that you can get notifications when I post a new video. And also, let me know down in the comments, what do you think of this? Do you think it's something that you could use? I really hope so, because I find it to be very useful. That's all for now. I hope to see you back here again sometime soon. But until then, have a beautiful day. Bye-bye now. Oops, I'm not done. I almost forgot something very important, and that's how to care for your silk screen. You want to wash this out immediately. Do not let the paint dry into this. It will block your mesh, and all that work you did will be wasted. Now, depending on the color of your interfacing, some of your paint may stain the interfacing, but that's okay. Just make sure the mesh areas are nice and clean, and you won't have any problem. Now, that's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.